Man counts down his top 25 plastic patio chairs of all time.
His top 25 plastic patio chairs?
Yes, you heard me.
I actually am very intrigued and would love to see what top 5 are.
I'm not.
Say more.
I mean, you don't have a patio that you'd want to know which chairs rank the best?
Nah, it's all personal preference. Okay, this is all podcast stuff. All right. And 3, 2, 1.
Who's introing?
I got it.
Brent.
Well, this is all in.
Christ.
Welcome, everybody, to If I May, a podcast with me, Brent, an average guy, along with 3 of my average friends, Kyle, Nick, and Dylan. We are going to talk about stuff while interrupting as politely as possible. This is episode 43. Let's go.
Guess what? Guess what I saw?
The in-breath there. He was quite literally...
Dylan, start over. Dylan, start over.
I'm not going to... All right.
Do this properly.
Guess what I saw on the highway the other day driving down to Alabama?
Dylan, what did Dylan see?
Oh, Lord. All right.
That's for this, right?
I enjoy it. All right, so I'm driving down to Alabama. And
new segment. Pause, if I may. New segment. Guess what Dylan saw? This is going to be a new segment now, starting weekly.
All right. As I was driving down the highway to Alabama, I saw this guy. He was pulling a truck, but it was a funky-looking truck with drawers on the side, and I was like, what in the world could that be? And I drove up closer, kind of behind it, and he was there was a big sticker on the back of his trailer that said Racing Pigeon Club. Is that ringing any bells?
Racing Pigeon Club? Didn't we just talk about that?
You guys did just talk about that, and you guys
the
were
Chinese
talking about how,
pigeon guy.
the Chinese pigeon sold for like $1 million something. And you guys were talking about how ridiculous it was, like that even the concept of having racing pigeons, and you guys were talking about betting on like how it's really popular in Asian culture to bet on racing pigeons. And then I'm driving down Alabama, and there's a dude pulling a trailer full of racing pigeons, and I was just like, "It's in like who would have thought?"
How many Alabama? Pigeons are we talking about here?
Like he probably had at least 12 different trays. Like, all right, you have to picture
like
it's like a trailer, kind of like, but it had like doors you open up in the sides for like different compartments for the pigeons to like be, I don't know, in, I guess. But like, I was just like, no way in Alabama, across a dude with racing pigeons. I don't know.
So,
who would have thought?
So my question with pigeons is, if you're trying to race them, you obviously want to all end at the same spot, like a finish line. But pigeons are going to go back to their home. So do you make it so wherever the end of the race is that pigeon's home? Is there just like, how does a pigeon race work? Is it
are only pigeons born in the same area allowed to race in that race?
Yeah, how does that work?
Or can they like climatize the pigeon to an area, like hold him there for like a couple months leading up to the race, and then quick transport him and then let him go, and then he's like rehomed into where he needs to be?
It could be. Yeah, I don't know. I should do more research on this, because I was like, well, your pigeon's going to fly home, then it's obviously not going to do very well if you have to get across the finish line first. So, like, that's kind of productive. I don't know.
I think there's obviously some way you have to train them, and I'm trying to figure out, like, just kind of wrap my idea about how you even race one pigeon against the other. Like, do you set it up like you have some food somewhere and it's the first pigeon to get to that food, or like I don't know.
I also want to know, like, do they, like, how close are these races? Are these pigeons, like, is this something you legitimately spectate sport where it's like they're coming in and like you can see them both like on the home stretch pushing it, and you're like, oh god, go, or is it like one flies in and then like 2 minutes later the next one comes in? Because if that's the case, I'm not into it.
Yeah, I don't know. Speaking of like amazing animals, so
is this a nature news?
No, it's not. It's just a random life thing. I know. Heather and I have started this thing where we started watching documentaries on Friday nights, because We're obviously the coolest cats around.
Brent, didn't you just say that you weren't a documentary person, or was that Nick?
I might be Nick. I don't know. It's growing on me. So we watched 2 weeks ago. We watched that Re-Solo, which was great.
It's a good one.
And then we watched Pick of the Litter, which is a documentary about guide dogs.
Interesting.
And it was crazy just the amount of hardcore training they do. Like to partly train the dogs so they step back. Like if you're walking with a blind person as a dog, you don't want them to run into a car or get run over by a car because that probably doesn't help you very much. So they would actually, part of their training was they would drive these cars at the dog and like train them to back away from any time there's a car or to stop and like pull back a little bit. And I don't know, inspired me as I've been walking Maple the last couple of days. I've been trying to like
drive your car at him.
No, I've been trying to like close my eyes and walk blindfold and see if she would pull, and terrifying.
Have a completely untrained dog, and it's maybe my dog is cut out to be a blindfold dog. I don't know.
Like no training, you're just giving this dog your life in
hopes
its hand.
And dreams,
and it's just like looking at you with you holding on his collar as a car hits you, and you're gonna be like, "What could have gone wrong?"
Maple's gonna be driving the car as he's saying, "Maple,
who needs a Tesla?
Who needs a Tesla?
Take it into your paws.
Take it in. Yeah, okay. No, but it's crazy the amount of training they go through. And one of the things that stood out to me was before they can get into their puppy school, which only like 2 in 8 dogs, it's a very low percentage of dogs that
very
actually
elite.
Graduate. It's very elite. But as they go through, the group that trains the guide dogs, they'll have them foster for a while, like the first 10 months or whatever it might be, with families who have to go through and train very basic behaviors and socialize them and make sure that they make the cut. And sometimes if the dog is exhibiting behaviors that aren't super, maybe they get distracted a little easily, they'll just halfway in between, like 2 months in after this family's built up a big attachment to dog, be like, okay, we're sending this dog to somebody else. And that's it. Just, it's gotta go somewhere else so it can get trained better. And it's just the impersonalness that it has to be for this program in order to successfully get these dogs to the level they have to be was, because I've heard of fostering dogs for, like a humane society. Well, that sounds really nice. I mean, you have to give them up at some point, but like you get a chance to build a bond with a puppy or whatever, and have the responsibility of taking care of that dog the whole life. But being that for a guide dog would be so tough. And then they'll tell you how your dog did and be like, oh yeah, sorry.
You actually kind of sucked at training them.
Well, they'd have a list of like, they'd show the stats for everyone, like had 4 guide dogs,
only
of them
one of them panned
retired.
out.
Yeah, or even if that, 3 dog guides or 3 guide dogs, none of them panned out. And it was just one of those things where I was like, oh my gosh, like that's gotta be really hard. And eventually they're like, what's the level of, oh yeah, none of your guide dogs, like puppies panned out. Like
you're done volunteering for us.
Maybe you can volunteer at the Humane Society for other kind of dog. Doesn't work for us.
I just thought of that. So, like, in the U.S., I think, actually, Juliana brought this up because my wife, Juliana, was adopted from Kazakhstan. And adoption in the U.S., there's really no, from what I've heard from her anyway, there's really no orphanages anymore in the United States. It's pretty much like all foster parents. I know one of my buddies, Parker, who I think, he might be on the podcast at some point, but he was saying that, like, his parents do the fostering. And I was just like, that would be so hard to, number one, you have to set all the ground rules, but then, like, I'm sure you get attached to some of these kids, like, especially if they're, like, super young. Like, if you have an infant and you're the only one they've ever really known, and you're a foster parent, and eventually you're like, oh, sorry, you got to move on to the next foster parent. Like, that'd be rough.
Well, for me, at being a foster parent, when you get in the mindset of like you're temporarily taking care of this kid and doing what you can to take care of this kid, but you have it in your mind that this child is not going to be around in your life for forever, or it could be, but I mean you could adopt the child yourself. But
nice, Dylan calling it.
Well, I mean, Okay, he or she. Excuse me.
What about they and Z?
All right.
All right. But you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
have this mindset as
Doesn't
if
need to
their
have a
child
gender in the
not
first
gonna-
place.
All right. Gosh, we just got Kyle over it. Leave it to Nick. To be expected. Continue, Dylan.
But you know, I mean, that was basically the whole idea. Was like I assume that the parent
Gender?
has this
You assumed
idea.
the gender.
What? I said a parent. Okay.
I get it. I see what you're doing.
You get it. Moving on. So,
Yeah, I'm done.
all right, Borderlands 3 is on its way out. I know I really only ever played a little bit of Borderlands 2 and not much of it at that. And now that Borderlands 3 is coming out, apparently Borderlands 2 is a little bit more of a big deal to Nick and Brent. And so I was like, yeah, I'm totally in for playing some Borderlands 2. But Borderlands 3 is apparently only coming out, at least initially, on the Epic store or whatever, like the same place that has Fortnite. And that does not make me happy at all.
Why?
Because why do I need Epic? I have Steam. Like, why can't it just be on Steam like every other game? Like, I understand Steam now is like kind of a monopoly, but I want it on Steam.
If I may, does it cost
Dylan,
you
first and
anything
foremost-
to subscribe to Epic?
No, but it's another thing I have to have installed on my computer, and another thing I have to make sure is updated. Another thing
Foremost,
running in the
Dylan, I
background.
apologize for derailing your conversation point. I
That's
hate when
all right.
that happens to me, and I was just throwing the random gender nonsense in there because that's what the internet is.
Somebody
about.
made a big speech about
I'm
this
using that
yesterday or
You
last
know
time.
what?
It's like-
You just
like, right
derailed
after it.
Kyle's
I am
Epic
apologizing.
conversation. No, I'm just kidding. No, okay. So here's my thought on it. I honestly, there's too many launchers to begin with, but I understand Epic's perspective from this. They're a company.
Oh, it's
and they
great
need
for
people
Epic.
onto their store, and if you're going to get exclusives like this, it's the same as if a game was to come out like Zelda.
No, so
Zelda
if I
comes
may,
out on the
yeah,
Switch.
it's
and
fantastic for
nobody
Epic, but not fantastic for the user, the end player.
Well, if I may, I was thinking, is there an app out there where you could basically put all of your launchers under one app, and you could get access to all the different launchers? For example, so you're complaining about having one. I'm looking at my desktop right now, and I have Origin, Epic, Steam, Battle.net, and Uplay.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Like, all of them are different launchers. Could there not be one app that you could access all of the content in each launcher, so that way you only have to deal with one? Is that
I think
is that too difficult?
I think Nvidia might actually have that by default, but you still have to have all the launchers installed, and then like whenever you launch that particular game, it launches whatever launcher it needs. But
Okay,
it's
which defeats the purpose of having the app.
yeah.
I
Gotcha.
can't see, unless it's through like a pirated way, like I can't see game companies liking that because they get money for you being on their store and having their app and selling you whatever it might be.
So
I feel
the,
like
the
there is
Borderlands
a-
3 on Epic is fantastic for Epic. I don't see how it benefits the makers of Borderlands 3, because then they're
They probably
limiting
got
themselves to
made-
one market versus all the markets.
They probably got
Here's the
money.
thing, if I
lots of
may,
money.
it all comes down to money. Right now, Steam is generally the favored platform for gamers. It is very
Right.
user friendly for their end of things. Epic, I don't necessarily agree. I've listened to a lot of videos because I'm excited about Borderlands 3, but Epic has a very different, some would argue, innovative business strategy that basically says we are going to throw a ton of money at developers. It's made for developers, and then we are going to basically monopolize the most profitable portion of a new game, or for lack of a better term. It's like the release for a big game, especially something like Borderlands 3, is going to be a very big event, and gamers are notorious for wanting to get something the opening day, and pre-orders are so huge. And I've already pre-ordered through Epic because they have this exclusive agreement. But Epic is making a bold play into the business side of things, and gamers are frankly butthurt about not being able to use their platform of choice. And instead of being angry at Epic, they should be angry at Steam or their competitors who are not
I agree.
stepping up
I'm not.
and making the kinds of business decisions to ensure that they are not left behind. And,
So-
and even though Steam has an arguably better product, Epic is making these plays and gamers are not happy, and they're taking it out on Epic, they're taking it out on Steam, they're voicing their dissatisfaction. And I don't know if there is a solution like that. It'd be a business opportunity, but from a licensing standpoint, which is what it all comes down to, it would be hard to bring all those things together. I'd be very impressed if you could find something that worked nicely and was compliant with the law.
So if I may, I think this is because Epic is probably going to lose money on Borderlands 3. Like, they're probably paying Borderlands 3 developers so much money to get that exclusive. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense for Borderlands 3 to do that. That unless they're getting a ton of money, more money than they expect to be able to sell on all the platforms, there's no way they would make themselves exclusive to Epic without a ton of money up front. So I think the Epic will likely sell this at a loss to get people onto their service.
I would disagree.
That way they can do this for future games without having to pay this amount.
I don't think they'll have to. I think this game's gonna have so much hype and it's gonna be so good.
I think they'll still easily make money.
That's why they're doing it.
I guess I don't know what their agreement is, but if they're giving Borderlands 3, there's no way opening day it gets more sales if it's on Epic than if it is on all platforms. There's just no way it would make as much money. So I think Epic's paying Borderlands 3 to have that exclusive ability. So they have to be giving them a ton, likely at a loss, in order to force everybody to buy through them. It's a future move. If you get everybody on your service, now when you sell stuff in the future,
I don't think so.
It is still going to buy it from Epic. If Epic's willing to pay anything and the other people are not willing to pay, it's not on the people who are taking the money to then be like, oh, well, they offered us a ton of money. No, they offered us something, which is better than nothing.
No, it's definitely to the higher bidder, because like Call of Duty is another great example. Call of Duty used to be Xbox exclusive, like everything first in Xbox, and then Xbox ended that contract, and Infinity Ward, Treyarch, and Sledgehammer decided to switch over to PlayStation. PlayStation ended up offering them more money or something, or they have a bigger player base, and Call of Duty decided to switch over to them being the exclusive.
Everyone who really wanted to play Call of Duty still played it on Xbox.
Until it switched over to PlayStation. Then if you look at all the top streamers, they all switched over to PlayStation.
But despite any noise and grumblings from gamers, 90+% of your base is still going to play on whatever platform you sell to. You could change it 3 times. If the game's that good, follow it.
If I may too, it's a computer. It's not like we're going from, well, no, it's on PC. So no matter what, like, I just have to download the Epic thing, like, whatever. If I really want to play it, I'll just download it. It's free store anyway. I'm still going to play the same game. You forget too, a lot of people already have the Epic store because of that game they came out with last year, Fortnite, which I know you're not a big fan of, and we talked about on this show, but like, it has a huge player base. And from that alone, there's probably thousands to millions of people that have the Epic store on their computers already. So just transition to Borderlands. I mean, it's a smart move by Epic. And I think what's going to actually benefit gamers in the long run is it's going to force the Steams, it's going to force the Uplay. No, I'm just kidding. Who cares what Uplay? But it's going to force these other companies.
How dare you?
That's even worse than
that. It's just Origin now. Not even Uplay anymore. It's just Origin.
It's even worse. To step up their games, hopefully, which this competition could benefit. I think there's a lot of industries that suffer from lack of competition. So getting a little bit more competition in these different storefronts could be a good thing in the long run.
Rainbow Six Siege is still specifically Uplay.
No, it's not. It's on Steam.
Rainbow Six Siege is on Steam?
Yep.
Yeah, it is, because it just went on sale. I had it watched. I didn't buy it like I was going to initially, but it's on my watch list and it just went on sale.
You're right. I'm wrong.
It was a good try. But I guess, what do we think about Borderlands 3 in general? We'll skip the whole what stupid platform it's releasing on. What do we think about the game so far?
If I may, after playing Borderlands 2, like, I was never really a Borderlands fan, and I always thought that I really wasn't into the whole cartoony thing. And when it comes to like battle royales, I'm still not. But when it's like a it's relatively open world.
It's
MMO,
sections.
I enjoy it. Like, I actually really enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to playing it some more. And I'm really looking forward to Borderlands 3 because it looks like they've really expanded upon what they've built in Borderlands 2. They're adding more characters. They're adding more weapons. It looks like they're adding more evil villains to defeat. It's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be very interesting.
If I may, the one other thing on the platform that I'll note real quick before I give my notes on the game. One of the things they commented on, and I'm actually really hopeful for because I have friends who play on multiple gaming. What am I trying to say?
Systems,
like Xbox, multiple systems. I have multiple friends on multiple systems, especially who would play Borderlands, and Epic has Fortnite and has other games which you can play cross-platform.
PC Master Race.
I am hoping that, regardless of where you stand, I'm really hopeful that I will be able to play with all of my friends without having to buy the game twice.
Right, Rocket League's done it right at this point.
Yeah, that would be the most irritating thing in the world for me if I had to buy it on the computer so I could play with you guys and buy it on the Xbox so I could play with my other friends. Probably do it because you guys are really looking forward to the game as much as I am, but you don't binge as much as I do. My other buddies binge a lot harder, and I would be able to play with them.
Who's this we? I think there's only one or two limiters on this squad of playing Borderlands every night.
No,
ouch.
but
you know, when you're married,
game, it's something I've played with a number of my friends, my former roommates, and I before Kyle played. He introduced me to Borderlands 2, and we played that a ton, and it is an absolute blast. They do it right. You know, we played Destiny and we played a few other games, and Borderlands is one that is, you know, it's not a battle royale. It's not just a giant mess. It's something really, really cool in my mind, and they do a very good job of it.
If I may, Kyle, are you excited about the new Pokemon games coming out on the Nintendo Switch? Are you excited as excited as I am?
So I honestly, I have not seen too much about them. All I really want to know is when the release date is, and that way I can pre-order it.
Well, the thing is, I've been playing.
Aren't they like Sword and Shield or something like that?
Yes, so they're brand new Pokemon games. I have been playing Pokemon on my Nintendo Switch, and I find that it's kind of disappointing. Like, obviously, like the graphics are much better and they're in 3D, but it's the remake of the old original games.
Right, it's fantastic. It's awesome and fun, but I've done it already multiple times.
Exactly. So like it looks amazing, but I know where all the hidden stuff is and all the bushes, and like I know where everything's at, and it's just kind of disappointing.
I mean, they added a couple new things here and there to like spice it up, and they changed the whole system as far as catching Pokemon versus having to battle them first, which
that's true, and I enjoy it.
And at first, I was very against it, and then it grew on me for sure. Yeah, especially shiny hunting.
I'm looking forward to a new experience with Pokemon in the old style of game on the Nintendo Switch. I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope it's not like super expensive. It kind of bothers me that all the games on the Nintendo Switch are released at full price, even though you can buy them on other systems for discounted prices now.
Yeah.
On the Nintendo Switch, because the Nintendo Switch is relatively new. You still have to pay full price for the games.
If I may. So that's partially because the cartridge that the games are on for the Nintendo Switch is actually more expensive than a disc, but it also holds a lot more storage, so you don't actually have to download all the junk onto your console itself. So that is one of the reasons why it stays at full price longer, especially if they just like remade an old game for the Switch. It's going to be at a higher price because they just like had to remake it for the Switch. To
counter that argument, for my Nintendo Switch, I was able to buy a 164 gig hard drive for it, or whatever. It's like
micro SD.
Micro SD card. And I knew right away that I didn't really want to deal with bringing around cartridges with me, because I like even remembering from when we used to play on like the old Game Boy systems.
Dude,
I hated.
If I may, can we pause for 1 second and all just show some mad respect for our Game Boy Colors and Game Boy Advances?
Sure. Was that it?
Yep, that's our moment of silence.
Oh, okay.
As a thank you.
No, it's a great system.
It lasts a long time.
And they still last well. The cartridges
I still have my
for
SP.
some games,
everyone still has their game. I still have a Game Boy Color that I used to play.
Dude, my red, yellow, and blue cartridges still save, but my gold and silver, neither of them save.
Interesting.
It has to be how they made those cartridges.
Right. You can swap out the battery, but it's just a pain in the butt.
But where I was going was that I remember I hated having to carry around all the cartridges, so I knew that I want a larger memory for my Switch, so I literally do not own any games that are digitally downloaded. Now, the other counter argument to that is that once you have all those games, you can't resell them.
And which is actually kind of what you ran into with your Xbox.
Exactly, but I ran into the same problem, and what I did with the Xbox is basically I sold it to a friend, and I allowed him to use my previous account, knowing that I probably won't get an Xbox again now that I am enjoying PC. I just basically gave him my account, and he was able to change the gamer tag, and the email address, and the credit card number
007 will no longer be there.
No longer exist. But he still had access to all my games, so I know that someone is enjoying all the money that I spent. Like, because if you add up all the money,
that's so much money.
I had like 60 large like name brand games, which
all the 360 stuff carried over too.
Yeah, but I probably had over $1,000 worth of games just like saved on there, and since it was all digitally downloaded, it's wasted, just floats away into nothing. So I'm kind of dealing with that with a Nintendo Switch as well. But I think it kind of balances out the fact that I don't want to be changing games all the time. If I want to switch games, like I can just go to the main menu and swap games.
The convenience is definitely huge. And I will say with Nintendo, with Nintendo in general, you're much more likely to have a game that has some super high replayability compared to other systems. Like the Nintendo exclusives just do it right every single time. Well, and I think that's partially why they're so expensive and they stay at $60 forever, is because they're like exclusive to Nintendo and they know that they're amazing games. So
right, which is why I only have Nintendo exclusive games on there. So like I'm like choking as I'm trying to talk. But so like I've got Zelda and these new Pokemon games, and I'll definitely buy these new ones. Well, I could buy Rocket League for my Switch, but I don't see the point when I could just play it on a different console.
The main reason is the airplane.
Is what?
Is an airplane or a car drive.
Well, yeah, that's the whole reason why I bought the Nintendo Switch, is because being in the military, I travel so much, and I want to be able to game while I travel.
Right? I'm surprised not you guys should almost be issued a Switch. Like, it's literally the perfect console for somebody in the military.
Exactly. So that's why I bought it, and that's also why I don't want to drag 100 cartridges, is because this way I can just have the case, the Nintendo Switch, and the charger, and I don't need anything else, because everything that I need will be in there. And I don't have, like, the case doesn't have room for cartridges. You can obviously buy like bigger, like a big carrying thing for it if you want to bring all that stuff around, but I don't want to have some big bulky item when I'm trying to carry with minimum gear. So I want to travel without cartridges, without all the extra stuff. I don't need the docking station, like all that stuff I don't need. I'm totally happy with just the screen, the two controllers that clip onto the screen, and that goes in the case, and I don't need anything else.
Yeah, dude, I primarily play my Switch handheld. Like, I rarely dock the thing, and that's partially because the big TV we have has some high latency, so, that's no good for gaming.
I've never even tried it. I've never even tried docking. I have it sitting in the docking station right now, but yeah, I've never even tried it.
Breath of the Wild does look super awesome docked. Like that's one where it's worth it just for how good the game looks.
Is Zelda?
Yeah, Zelda.
Yeah, that game is amazing, and I'm looking forward to getting more into it.
So Kyle,
you
mentioned how your TV looks and how sometimes you dock with the Switch. It doesn't
this is gonna be one of
good.
Brent's classic
segues. You
had
great latency, and I remember. Do you guys remember this? Like way back in the day, like when we were growing up, and then you still had to, if you wanted to watch a movie, you had to put the old VHS tape in, and in order to get the VHS tape to go, and you had to go to like channel 1 or 2. And every once in a while,
there's always channel 3. What are you talking about?
Or it was a 3? Yeah, sorry, 3. I think it was before my time. It was 1 or 2. But yeah, channel 3, right? So you had to get on channel 3, but there's sometimes you get those channels that looked like it was all white and fuzzy, and it made some weird noises. Yeah, the static, like snow.
Where are you going with this?
Nick, dude, what is up with this? We're going to go visit you in Minneapolis, and there's going to be snow? Like, come on, man, it's April.
That segued. I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, I saw it coming. Actually, if you believe it or not,
I
don't believe it.
I would have gone to Kyle if I would know there was snow.
I used to be scared of that. The static of the TVs.
Segue from Brent. You never
Everyone's
know when it's going to come, and you
Brent and
may
I
or may not be able to figure it out ahead.
Brent and I in one of the classes that we had together, whenever the TV had the static, we'd be like, "Oh, we love this battle. It's the battle of the black and the white. White's winning. White's winning. Oh, black's winning."
Classic love story. The battle of the black and the white.
Seen only on
static
Game of Thrones.
on
Wait,
static.
what?
It's actually a great segue, Mr. Brent, into see that saved there. I almost said your last name. That'd have been bad. That's a great segue into the fact that this Sunday, episode 1 of the final season is airing.
What about this? Oh, I guess Jon Snow. Oh, I see what you did there, Nick. I might be giving you too much credit there, but the snow, Jon Snow, or should we say? I can't say it. Spoiler.
What time is it on Sunday, Nick?
On Sunday, it is always at 8 o'clock, I think. I have to double check. I actually have to order it on HBO because HBO after Game of Thrones is done. So every time when Game of Thrones comes back on, I need to then call my area and be like,
good thing it's only 6 months,
crap
6 episodes this time.
Wait, only
Each
6?
episode's 2 hours.
Yeah, but if one a week, that's 2 months. You only have to pay for 2 months of HBO, where normally you have to pay for 3 or 4.
So how much is HBO? I'm thinking about getting it for
$15 a
Here's
month.
the thing, and the conversation I want to have with the rep for my cable provider is this. Hello, Mr. or Mrs. or Ms. Rep. See how gender neutral that was? And
beautiful.
Whatever.
We learned our lesson.
Rep person.
Hello, rep individual. Can you please tell me why I should have my $15 a month go towards you rather than paying for HBO Go? Simply ask. I can stream it from HBO directly live, or I can give you the money and have it on my TV instead. Tell me why I shouldn't just stream it. Why would I go use you? And I'm hoping that they'll just add it on, no big deal. And if they won't, then I will use HBO Go. And yeah, it's about $15 a month, something like that. And you're able to stream the premiere. It is fantastic. Also with HBO Go, you are able to rewatch the historical seasons, any and all HBO content. It's all available on demand.
Yeah, HBO's got some good
whatever your
stuff.
terminology is. They have a lot of great shows. I'm a huge fan. Anytime a new movie that's good is finally released to DVD or whatever, they will have it essentially if it's a good movie.
Did HBO do Top Shot?
God, I'm not familiar.
It's basically a reality TV show like Survivor or Big House or whatever, except in order for elimination, it's all about shooting. And it can go from shooting any kind of gun as well as like hatchets, marksmanship in general. It has I think it's an HBO exclusive, or at least it was released through HBO. I'm not 100% sure, but Chop Shot is like my favorite reality show because they're shooting guns and whatnot.
I haven't had HBO since the last season finished. I quite literally just called them the day after the airing of the last show and said, "Hey, I no longer like HBO. Cancel my subscription."
I'm out.
I wonder
If
what
I
the
may-
statistic is. How many people quit, drop their
So
HBO
many.
as soon as Game of Thrones?
So
Dude,
many
I bet
pirated.
almost everyone did.
If I may, though, shouldn't we be
though.
outraged that Game of Thrones, the new season's only gonna be offered through this one launcher, HBO? Why isn't there more options for it?
Because they're doing
Seems
it right.
fair. No, I'm just kidding, dude. I had to circle back.
I
to
would
that.
put
Not
HBO
quite complete.
in the same
It
category
sort
of
of
Blizzard.
works.
Hold
It
on.
sort of works.
If I may, I put HBO in the same category as Blizzard, where yes, they're their own server, but they kind of only host their own stuff. It's like Blizzard kind of only does Blizzard games. There's a couple exceptions here and there, and I'm sure there's the same for HBO. But really, if you want HBO, you're only seeing HBO stuff. They don't host other people's content like Stars does. Like Stars will have their own stuff plus a bunch of other people's stuff.
I'm not sure. I've been subscribed to HBO Now. I think it is.
It's
either
the same
HBO
thing.
Go or HBO Now, but it's the exact same. Basically, HBO
Confusing
for
with the
your
difference.
phone.
'Cause
I don't
HBO
really
Now-
know what the difference is.
the app that is for customers of your local cable provider. HBO Go is, I think, if you wanted to just buy it straight from HBO.
You know what I bet it is?
HBO kind of has, it's like an Under Armour store. You can go to a Shields or a mall store of any variety and get Under Armour sweatshirts, or you can go to an Under Armour where they just have they sell their own products in their own stores.
Well, I'll say, if I may, I think my guess is that HBO is like probably internally in the company split between cable network stuff and internet stuff, and so I bet you they're siloed in those two categories, and they just don't, two separate kind of business entities as far as like cable version of HBO and then the internet version. That would be my guess.
That's it. Yeah, it comes down to the money and the business. You're probably right.
I don't know. I'm kind of interested. I think it'd be kind of interesting to get both HBO Now and HBO Go and see the difference between the two apps. But I've had so I had HBO Now. So I have internet. I don't have cable. I don't have TV. I don't watch any TV or anything like that. I just have internet, and then I have HBO Now. I don't have Netflix even.
You have Plex.
Yeah, I have Plex. But to be honest, I've never used it.
Oh.
Yeah. Sorry. but yeah, I just there's plenty of one. I just enjoy YouTube that much, and there's so many documentaries and podcasts and interesting things to watch on YouTube that I can fill my time with things other than watching reality TV shows. You know what I'm saying?
Right, that brings up an interesting question with like audiobooks. And I know we talked about this a little bit. If you listen to an audiobook, is that reading a book?
So I had a thought about this, and I think the importance that obviously it's important as a child growing up to read because you need to be aware of different words, and it's important. I know that there was some statistic where it was like you had to hear a certain number of words per day
in order to retain them, or you hear a word every so often.
Yeah, and it was like directly related to your was like how many words you heard growing up. So like if you were around people that spoke at a higher level growing up, you're bound to be more intelligent or something like that. I don't know. I don't know how that statistic went.
That's why I got my education.
Well,
sorry, continue.
But I was like trying to think of how that would correlate with an audiobook. Like obviously you hear words, and that obviously kind of makes you understand words better. But like like physically see words, I think that affects you differently than hearing them. And obviously you get the same story out of it. You think about the story the same whether you're hearing it or reading it. But I think there's just a difference between hearing it and reading it. And I'm not sure.
I think it's like one of those things that adults are allowed to do, but kids aren't. Like, kids, if you're doing an audiobook, you're not really reading because you're a kid and you need to learn how to read. If you're an adult doing an audiobook, you're an adult. Like, you know how to read. You know if your reading level's good enough. So, yep, I think it's something like that.
Another argument to that, though, is, for example, when I grew up, I heard so many more stories because my dad and I listened to audiobooks while we were driving. I heard so many more stories, and I never in my lifetime would have read them. So, for example, we used to drive a couple hours every weekend, and I would never sit in the car and read because I would get car sickness or whatever. I'd get motion sickness. But if we would listen to Sherlock Holmes like nonstop, and to the point where I knew all the episodes. I knew every. If I may,
I think you're bringing up the perfect point of whether it makes sense to do the audiobook or whether it makes sense to read a book. If you're in the woods, in nature, you should probably have the book in front of you. If you're driving with your kid and you can't read a book, and maybe it's a smidge above his level, or maybe he's not that into reading, if you play the audiobook, you're still having that like quote unquote reading experience. So I would almost put it as long as it's convenient for you to do. If it's more convenient to do an audiobook than to read, I would say go for the audiobook.
So you're saying it's situational.
Yeah.
And
well, because like in the woods, you don't want to be playing electronic audio in the middle of the woods. It's just ruining the vibe. Like you're ruining the vibe, man. But like in the woods, audiobooks don't make sense. In the car, books don't always make sense, depending on if you're a driver or just a passenger that can't read because of motion sickness.
I think one thing that comes with it is that if you're reading a book, seeing those words, having those visual cues, I think helps remember and catching more details. The ability to quickly look back at a page and make connections, I think is a really strong experience that if you're an audiobook, there's a lot of details I feel like that a lot of time will get glanced over. Like, I think it's good if you're trying to get a story, but if you're trying to substitute reading or listening to an audiobook, I don't know if you're going to get quite the same effect. Like, just from what I can tell.
What details are you talking about, just out of my curiosity, that
well,
you
like
would
in a
miss in an
story.
audiobook?
Like in a story, like if I'm trying to make connections of like,
if you're trying to refine
what
a
is
part,
this character connected to this character? Oh wait, because they said this little thing back there, like you're not gonna
in a real
your
book, in a real book, you can quick flip back to about where you read something about, like, oh, was that referencing this? You could flip back really quick and get to that spot where you can't really do that in an audiobook. So I see Brent's point there.
You're getting more of a story, like it's like someone's telling you an oral story, and I think that's an important skill to get. But yeah, go ahead.
I kind of, so the way I look at it is I'm more of a audio type person. So like if I can hear something, I understand it better. If I'm like physically reading something, I'll be reading something, but I won't be comprehending what I'm reading. So like I'll look at something and like I'll get through the page.
You'll read
and
through
then
the words.
Yeah, I'll see the words, but I'm not understanding what I'm seeing. You know what I'm saying? So like, whereas if someone's telling me a story, it clicks and I'm able to make those connections without even thinking about it. Whereas if I'm reading it, I might have to read a page a couple times to even understand what I'm looking at. So I think for me, audiobooks are more beneficial than reading the book. That makes sense?
Yeah, interesting take. Any other thoughts on this? Otherwise, I wanted to circle back to the Game of Thrones stuff real quick.
Go for it.
So,
it
question
is
for
Game
you
of Thrones
all.
time.
When I'll state my and you guys can share if you have anything similar or have a comparison you can make. But when I watch Game of Thrones, I advertise for my friends to come over if they'd like to. And whether you're a fan of the show or not, you're more than welcome to, of course, come over and watch the show. But I am incredibly strict on my rules. I basically say, here are the rules. If you come over to watch Game of Thrones, you will be quiet. There is no asking questions of any kind. You are allowed to react to scenes, gasp like, oh my goodness, what was that? Or, oh, that's crazy, something like that. But so much of Game of Thrones, and it probably won't be this season because it's not George R. Martin's like material. So much in the past, you had to listen so closely that you could not be answering questions. You cannot be interrupting because there was so much detail and such a rich story occurring on levels that you can't even perceive the first couple
especially
times.
At like season 1, they introduced you to so many characters so fast.
Like, and I've had to rewatch it, or I've enjoyed, I didn't have to. I wanted to and did rewatch it, a ton of times to get all those details. But as you're watching, nothing miffs me more than to have someone who doesn't pay attention, doesn't appreciate it, and doesn't care, ruining my first viewing of it because they're asking what I perceive to be stupid questions because they just aren't a fan of the show, don't know what's going on, or don't know main character plot lines, or something happens and it's a big event, but unless you know about the past, which any avid show watcher or even moderate show watcher would of course know that when Tyrion did this, it was huge. If you don't know that and you're just like, oh, what happened, what do you mean?
If I may, Nick,
I cannot stand watching TV or a show that I'm into with you. So I make it clear that I will frankly ask you to leave if you don't abide by those rules.
If I may, Nick, I think you would benefit from watching the first showing of Game of Thrones alone. From what I've heard and from knowing you, I think to get to level of detail, that's not really. Like
if I may, though, Brent, you don't understand.
Party.
So being roommates with Nick for a couple months, or almost a little bit over half a year, he had a whole gang. He had this setup. Like, they'd all go over to the same guy's house every single time. Tony, I believe.
And not Tony. But
what?
Yeah.
Not Tony? Who's the bigger guy?
Not Tony. Other Tony.
I forgot his name. Oh my God, I feel so bad.
We'll call him not Tony. We'll just call him not Tony.
Nick, what was the guy's name? Owner of the house.
His name was Paul.
Paul. Yeah, that's it. We always smack each other's shin guards when we were playing each other in broomball. Anyhow, like we had this whole setup. Everybody in that house knew the rules, and so we'd go over there every single Sunday
Not
night
crazy.
to watch.
And I'm not alone.
And there was a good 10, anywhere from 8 to like maybe 15 some nights, depending on if people brought guests in the same room. And they would legit have a second room set up for people that haven't seen the show yet. Be like, if you're going to ask questions, you watch in this room. Like, you're not in the main room. You don't get to ask us. We're into it. You go over here. You go catch up, figure your shit out. Like,
See, that's
I am not alone. This was legitimately. I mean, this show. There's a reason it's that good. It's not just because they've got CGI dragons and all this other nonsense and noise. I mean, there is that much depth to appreciate. And if you are watching it and you're any kind of an actual fan,
second whole viewing room. Second whole viewing room.
You need a showing that's going to be silent so you can observe all of it. And I'm the guy who watches the episode. I will rewatch that same episode 3 different times that week. And I'll watch like 3 to 4 different YouTube reviewers who have broken down everything to get like the full in-depth view of everything going on. And I still miss stuff. Like I cover anything and everything at the, the nth level, and there's still more.
So the thing is, though, like, yeah, it'd be nice maybe at the end to talk to people about it, but you can.
We can after the episode.
The thing that
episode.
You're missing out on, and the thing that I believe my setup makes it superior is that there's a pillow throne. So just like there's the Iron Throne for the show, there's in my house or apartment, there's the pillow throne where I set up.
Brent, are you trying to segue again?
No, I'm not. I seriously, I set up a bunch of pillows.
Sounded like a Brent segue was coming on.
I take over I the TV in the bedroom. I have that streaming HBO. I get comfortable and nobody's talking over what I'm talking through. It's just me and the show, and I can get that really nice open viewing time. I don't know. I feel like that's a good way of getting that first view.
Let's refocus on the question. You like to watch the show on your quote unquote pillow throne alone and in silence.
Yes, which is different. I mean,
on your own,
you watch
in silence
with friends, which is risky. I don't know.
It's not though. We like clarify the rules.
It's
for everyone.
Definitely not because of how serious everybody in that room is. Everybody in that room is on the exact same page.
It's not like you show up and you're like, what do you mean no questions? Of course. Whatever. I'll get up and get popcorn in the middle. Like, whatever.
If you haven't read this series of books at least 3 times, you're in the minority in that room.
And I'm actually in that minority because I haven't read the books. I'm not a big reader to begin with. But
need audiobooks, man. Connections.
At any rate, Kyle, how do you, and if it's not Game of Thrones, how do you like to watch a show that you're really into?
I definitely enjoy the binging. If a show... In my mind, if a show is a good enough show, I will binge the entire show, all seasons, straight through. That's where, like, when Netflix started, and they just, here's the entire series. Have at it. It was done. Like, you just go straight through it.
Bad News Bears.
Yeah. Especially when it's all there. You can select what you want. You're not just going through the movie store and being like, maybe I like that. You can just try it. If you don't like it, you're done. Switch to the next thing. So, in my mind, if there's a really good TV show that I can watch the entire series at once, or at least the one season or whatever, I much prefer that over a movie because they just have so much more time to develop the plot. And if I don't binge watch the entire thing, it wasn't that good. I would just quit and go to something else. Does that answer your question?
No, that's great. Dylan?
I was just trying to think. So I'm kind of the same way. When I watch a show, I just kind of get super addicted, and I just kind of, and it's not that I mean to binge watch it. It's just it just kind of happens to where I stop sleeping. I'm staying up late, and it's just like, I could probably get in one more episode, and it's 2 a.m. and I got to be up at 6. It's like, well, I could probably get one more in there, But at some point I'll recognize that that's kind of unhealthy because I'm so addicted to these shows, and then I'll just kind of stop watching it for a while, and then I'll move on to another show. So that's part of the reason why I got rid of my Netflix, was because that was happening to me. And now I basically got HBO strictly for Game of Thrones, just because I did the same thing. I watched the whole thing, and then I got my girlfriend. I watched it again with my girlfriend, and then I actually got her parents addicted, and they are just in the past 1 month are finishing.
They're
up,
in it.
They're finishing up season 6,
Dang.
and then Yep. In 1 or 2 months, they watched all 6 seasons.
Yeah, dude, when I started watching Game of Thrones, I was like, because I had heard a bunch of people talking about it. I'm like, supposedly it's good. Some of my favorite YouTubers were like talking about it and giving spoilers for stuff that was like season 4, and I didn't even see a single episode in my life. So I was like, you know what, screw it. I was at Walmart, and season 1 was on sale. I was like, you know what, screw it. I'll grab season 1, see if I like it. The very next day, I bought seasons 2 and 3. By the end of the weekend, I had watched all 3 of the seasons that were currently available on DVD. It was like,
it's that good.
It's that good.
That's like, and I try normally I try to avoid those type of shows because I know how addicting. Like, I definitely did my best to stay away from Walking Dead because I know how addicted everyone got to that show.
Luckily, in The Walking Dead, once you get to like end of season 2, season 3. It just gets boring as hell.
Goes to crap really fast, actually.
And I haven't watched. Apparently, it's gotten better. I haven't watched it again since then.
Yeah, after a certain point, I tuned out entirely. But the one thing I will say, a disclaimer: as good as Game of Thrones is, and it deserves to be, it was sad for me, and I like to go off on these rants about Hollywood writers because I could not be more disappointed. I cannot give the author of the books, which is, what was made first, enough credit. He hasn't finished the series, but the level of detail and depth that he goes to, you could read that story and get new details, subplots and theories, and it's all legitimate and it's all been thought through. Like, it is a masterpiece, to say the least. And it's, as soon as they got off of his material, though, because as far as a timeline, if you're not familiar with the show, they surpassed the books. They were beyond where Martin had left his story, and he's still writing. The show just became horrible. One of my favorite characters, Tyrion Lannister, the imp, in the books, so spoiler alert, I guess. But he's still alive, and he and Varys would go back and forth and have like the best dialogue ever. And it was, competitive. It was looking at the situation, the political situation, how everyone plays their role and does this and that, and to watch that go from the rich dialogue with everything being spoken about in a way that is crazy.
You can tell their intelligence because of what they are saying and what they're not saying. You can tell they're both their levels of intelligence.
It's crazy. And I'd throw Littlefinger in that same group, and to have that style of communication and that much in-depth character development and everything. And then when the Hollywood writers took over, they dropped all of it. I don't think Tyrion Lannister has had one, witty line in all of the most recent season.
That guy did have a really dope Super Bowl commercial last year, though.
Did, but I mean, it was just, he went from like my favorite character with this crazy in-depth, understanding of everything and a wit, and he's playing up mind games and everything he does, to just a pawn in this war. And, oh, by the way, because he's not the main focus for the end game at this point, we're just going to leave him here until we need him. He really played a role in, at this point, was at the end of the season, there's some questions that need to be asked or answered depending how you look at it. But it was really disappointing going from to the show. And it's not like a Harry Potter comparison where, oh, that didn't happen in the books, or, oh, this didn't happen in the show, and it should have. It was, no, just the quality just tanked. So as much as I'm looking forward to the last season, and so should everybody, I've had to lower my expectations, which makes me sad. But I am still looking forward to the story being pedestal now.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of loose ends to wrap up. Brent, I know you were trying to button earlier. Do you have something?
No, but I've come up with another segue.
Ooh, let's hear it. What are we segueing from and to?
All right. So this is a story I've wanted to tell for quite a while. We've been talking about Game of Thrones, and I think like Game of Thrones, there's always, the witty banter and there's always that like CGI, but I think the thing that I always find to be like the most entertaining is like the battle section, and it kind of reminds me of a personal battle that I've had recently, where we battled back for victory in curling. That's right, huge victory, huge come from behind.
Welcome to the curling section of If I May.
Pulled from the grasp of defeat. So basically, what happened was we weren't really aware of that, but there was a loser bracket, and when you play in a league and you have as many subs as we had to have and don't curl as often as we probably should, you end up losing a lot of games and end up at the end of the year in the loser playoff instead of the winner playoff. And I'm okay with that. At least for now. Well, anyway,
you can
so
tell Brent is not salty at all.
We get in this game and we're playing. It's us, the 6th ranked team versus the 7th ranked team, to see who has a chance to play for 5th in the league. And it starts off, and I set up, and the team sets up a really good end. Everything's working the way the strategy goes, and then just one of those my rock that I threw to secure some points ended up picking. It hit some pebble or little piece of dust or something.
So it's Brent's fault.
Yep. Well, anyway, it basically shifted off course, missed the shot, and just threw me off. The next end, we ended up giving up 3. So instead of playing a full 8 ends, we're only playing half of a game. It's half of that in, and we're already down 4. We kind of rebound, but just not hitting shots the way we're supposed to. And all of a sudden, we find ourselves down with 1 chance left to score, down 5. Now, in curling, you throw 8 stones each, which means that at the very best, perfection happens. You're able to get 8 points, which is like a hole-in-one in golf. Just never happen. You'd have to be really, really lucky. So I go into just thinking like we have no shot, and we really shouldn't have, but through a whole bunch of sheer luck, like I switched up the strategy a little bit. We started hitting our shots. It helped that the other team hit one of our rocks into the rings. They weren't putting anything in the rings. They weren't hitting our shots out. It was kind of a combination of a misplay on their part, a really good play on our part, and just a lot of luck. And we somehow not only scored 5, but we got 6 to win it outright. And I just felt so bad for them. Just to like give up 6 points. Oh.
I don't know where the what came from. Why is it going? I'm not clicking anything.
Just to be able to score 75% of the possible points, but to get that all in one. Oh, I felt so bad for the team.
Because typically you're happy if you just get the 1 point, right?
If you can get 2 points, that's a good end. And I was thinking let's just make it respectable. Let's go for 2. Let's go for 3. We'll end our season on at least we got back a little bit what we got, but all of a sudden we pulled it through, and then we ended up going right after that into the 5th place game, and momentum carried us to a pretty solid victory and 5th place in our league. That's all I can say. But it was, I've never been a part of a comeback that crazy of being down 5, 1 chance to do it, and everything going their way.
So
have you guys
Brent.
had any chance? Have you guys ever been a part of something like that where you just like snatch victory from the jaws of defeat?
I like how Brent tells a story like, I just did something so good. Have you guys ever been that good?
Have you?
I just want to shout out a quick little fact that really means nothing, but I thought it was kind of interesting. I was looking up the cost of curling stones, and according to Curling Stone, new stones cost about $450, although they can run up to $600.
For one stone or a whole set?
One new stone.
That's per stone. So the only place they make these stones from are with granite, like very specific granite from Scotland. So it's
Ailsa Crag, whatever that means. I think that's a type of granite. It's a blue bone granite.
If I may,
from Ailsa Crag.
One quick fun fact about curling is if you take a cup on your table and spin it while you push it, you'll notice it curls to the left, I believe. Let me spin something on my table. Yep. So if you spin it clockwise, it goes off to the left. However, for curling, when you put a spin on it, it actually goes the opposite direction as what everything, like a quote-unquote standard object does on a surface. So if you spin the curling stone to clockwise, it'll actually go to the right. And there's two prevailing theories as to why this is, and neither of them are actually able to be proven. One has to do with like melting the ice slightly more on one side because there's more friction, and that's pulling it that way. And then the other one's basically saying that similar effect, but it like has a pushing effect. And neither one of the theories are proven as to why. Like, so the scientific community does not agree on why a curling stone kind of curls the opposite direction, like quote unquote standard object would.
If we figure this out, would that get me to be better at curling?
I don't know if it'd make you better at curling, but it would make you very well known in the scientific field very rapidly. At least by the high up people.
Of a physics question.
I guess it's one of those combination things that a physician, a mathematician, or engineer, and like anybody could really figure out. It's just a matter of being able to prove it.
Brent, which position do you like best in curling?
It's tough to say. I like to skip the strategic part of it. I like that a lot. I like thinking about every shot and calling things.
He likes telling people what to do.
I also like
being the boss.
But when you first get on the ice, it's always so cold. If you're not sweeping and warming yourself up, I mean, I just will stand back there and just shiver. Through the first like two ends because it's cold.
Are you the guy that's like, go, go? Is that you that yells that out?
Yes.
I want your position as well. Sweep, sweep, hold, sweep.
If the sweepers don't listen, you get they always blame you for not telling them the right thing, even though they just don't listen. So
that's definitely
sweeping is actually really. I like sweeping though. I think it's a lot of fun to really try and influence a shot. But by the end of a full game, it gets really tiring. So because you're pushing down with like pretty much all your weight, trying to manipulate these rocks and you're.
Brent, how do we do in curling this last? Wasn't there like a national or a championship thing?
I'm pretty sure they made the playoffs. I haven't actually followed. There was just the World Cup. Sweden won.
You call yourself
Canada.
A curling fan?
Yeah, I've been following track and field more recently since I've been coaching that. So I know that they made it into the next round, but they weren't looking too good. There's a lot of rumor that there's been a little bit of internal conflict within the team. Full of big personalities.
Mario and the gang aren't getting along.
Well, supposedly Mario talks too much, and that bums out the rest of the gang. They get annoyed by it. So,
Brent, when you're watching track and field, are you the type of person that watches all the events, or is there specific events that you prefer?
I prefer the distance. So if I were to watch alone, I'd look for the distance, and I would casually, if I knew there was
the
a
most
specific
boring
athlete,
one. I was gonna say that.
The best one, no. Not at all. The best race. There was just
high jump, nah. Long jump,
There was just a big event on Saturday.
Long distance running. Yep, that's the one.
There were two guys that ran about 8:40 in the 2 mile, which is same as running 4:20 miles. Which running a 4:20 mile is incredibly difficult to begin with and will get you to state. But to run it twice in a row, oh my gosh, that excites me. I don't know, for some reason. The distance events more so than a lot of the other ones. Like, yes, you're going really fast, but you can really feel like if someone's running a great mile, it's really a well-disciplined, a lot of heart needs to happen because you run for a mile, you run for 2 miles, you get really tired. Like, it sucks. So to see someone be able to push past those boundaries and just keep keep moving. I love
Has
it.
that one? I think it's a UK. That guy from the UK. Has he been able to break 2 minutes yet for the mile? Or no,
or
2 hours for the
marathon?
marathon. 2-hour marathon.
No, they haven't attempted that. That would probably take another year.
Well, they attempted it with
preparation.
Tesla. Like they partnered with Tesla to try to attempt it and had like a pace car and everything, and they got super close. But I don't know if they've done anything more since then.
No, it's been too soon. I don't know if they'll ever break 2. I'm sure they will. They have.
I think
Well,
I
like
watched
some
track and field
scientists-
for the wrong reason.
What?
I think I watched track and field for the wrong reasons. Like you guys talk about how like you want to see these guys like achieve these like great achievements, whereas I'm just like I just really hope someone's pole vaulting and their pole snaps and something crazy happens. Like,
No, not the
or
pole
like-
snapping. Dude,
Or
So
like
this video
some
on
dude throws a javelin and accidentally spears someone, or like
When my-
the people with
if I-
with the shot put like slings it like on
The
the,
wrong
rope, like
way.
slings it the wrong way. Like that's the kind of stuff I live for. But
you just
So
need to go on
the-
YouTube, man.
the
When
300 hurdles. I want to the meet I was watching Saturday night. This 300 hurdles. These three like it's crazy thing. People are hitting hurdles. You can tell that they're really giving it their all. 3 people collapse over the last hurdle and literally like crawl themselves, like try and crawl and stretch themselves
Yes.
over the finish line.
Flop
That you
themselves
would have
over.
liked that, Dylan. You would enjoy that.
yeah, that would have made me happy.
That's. I just
What-
saw a guy like full on stretch and pull. Oh, it was so.
When my brother Cody started pole vaulting in high school, I sent him a video clip of this guy that like pole vaults over the bar, and the end of his pole catches him right where you don't want to be caught for a guy.
Oh no!
Dude, it's so good. It's like, oh, like I was like, good luck pole vaulting. I sent him that. He's like, oh, thanks, man.
I feel like you would like ride that down and miss the pad too.
It's in slow mo. They have the perfect angle.
Oh no!
By the
Nice.
way, congratulations to the national champions, NCAA men's basketball, Virginia. They won back on
West Virginia?
Monday.
Mountain.
What a
Mountain.
redemption story!
Virginia.
Going from losing to a 16 seed to winning the national championship, they got the
I
last
was-
laugh.
Full disclaimer, that was one of my narratives that I built into my bracket. I did pick Virginia in one of them. Now I make a couple, so it's not my only one. Not that I nailed it, but I did pick Virginia in one of the 3 or 4 that I put together, and it was with that narrative in mind. It was the revenge tour for Virginia, the first 1 seed ever to lose in the first round to a 16 seed, comes back and gets revenge, wins the whole thing.
Isn't Tony Bennett their coach? I think they're like the
And
coach
that was
for
curling
Virginia.
talk, by the way.
The Virginia coach has a connection to Wisconsin, so I always have a soft spot for those guys.
They play Wisconsin style basketball. I mean, it's slow, methodical, good defense, and a lot of technique as opposed to just going out there and running and gunning. And Texas Tech is it was 2 defensive juggernauts. I think this is probably one of the lower scoring national championships out there. I don't actually remember what the final score was. It
30
did go
to
to
32.
it did go to overtime. I think it was 77-85. So no, that's not
pretty
all that
high
low.
scoring.
That's pretty high, but
Yeah.
it took them overtime to get that high. I think they were in the 60s or low 70s. So more scoring than was anticipated, but still a defensive battle. Very good defending teams, which is how they got in that position. But congratulations to Virginia and anyone whose bracket had them going all the way.
And speaking of
No,
overtime,
I think with
we're
that.
overtime.
Yeah, perfect. Brent, you're so good at this game.
Hey, I'm so good at this. Well, anyway, I want to wish Kyle. It will be belated by the time you hear this, but for us, it's tomorrow. So, a few hours even. Happy birthday to our good buddy Kyle. That's episode 43 of If I May. I hope you all enjoyed. New episode every Thursday. Support us. Just give us a listen. Give us a review. Share this with somebody. That's really the best way you can support. And in return, if you use free ships on our merchandise store, you can get free shipping. What a deal. If you want to get in contact with us to give us ideas for topics, about things you want to hear in future episodes, send us a DM on Twitter at Zarabust or email us at zarabust@gmail.com. We hope you have another great Thursday, and we will all see you next week.